Welcome, everyone. My name is Jacob. Thank you for joining me. This is Hunt Detail, and hope your season's going well. Hope you're filling tags. Hope you're having fun. Hope you're enjoying the grind. I filled an out-of-state buck tag last Wednesday, and thought I'd share that story with you today. I've talked a lot about this particular area. This is a new state to me in many ways. I hunted there maybe 6 or 7 years ago on a piece of private and killed a buck, but this is a piece of public in this state that I've never hunted before. And I really wanted to sort of uh, take on that experience of a place that I hadn't scouted before. I wanted to focus more on in-season scouting and try to crack the code, if you will, in season. And so I'll sort of go back to when I first started thinking about this back in really at the end of last year, because I was really frustrated because of some limited opportunities and in other states and different seasons, shuttle in and shuttle out. And I was like, gosh, I really need to add another state to my. I had tagged out October 1st of last year at my home state, and I needed to add to sort of the repertoire of opportunities. And so I was thinking about this piece of public in this state really late last year, and what I should have done was went ahead and got a tag and just hunted it, even though it was sort of a late season hunt. But I felt like, I don't like buying. I don't even like paying for an out of state tag because of the expense of it, and I hadn't really prepared for it. So I thought, you know what, next year, 2024, I'm going to go all in on this state, and I was going to base it on if I filled my home state tag. So I did fill my home state tag, I think October 16th or something of this year. So went ahead and got this tag in addition to another state tag that I have, another out of state tag, other also public area that I'm currently hunting. And so I really if you listen to previous episodes, you'll recognize some of this, but I'll the way I picked this area out, at least I believe, I was looking at, I mean, it's a pretty big chunk of public. In some places it's broken up, but I really wanted to find an area that had a lot of ridges sort of dumping down into a similar drainage. And it didn't matter to me if the drainage went north and south or east and west, but I wanted multiple points sort of dropping down because, as you can imagine, as you get into late October and November, deer bucks are dropping down, they're making sign. It tends to be near doe travel areas, and they are in a lot of ways showing you where the deer are in that area. And obviously, a buck could travel in the evening as thermals are falling. He could travel a drainage or a creek system and pick up a lot of information along the way as scent is falling from uphill to downhill as that air cools. And that's thermals that I'm sure you're familiar with, but as air cools, it's falling, and then as it warms in the morning, it's rising. It's not a perfect science. It doesn't always work that way. I mean, shade can impact airflow, air movement, and water, and those sorts of things. But ostensibly, those are sort of the dynamics of thermals. And so I really, when I found this area on a map that it seemed like there was enough buffers around it to where there wouldn't be a lot of pressure from a lot of different areas. I mean, obviously there's advantages to coming into an area from multiple ways, but there's also an advantage if there's only really one way to get into some place, because that means if you're willing to do the work and go back as far as the sign tells you, then it may cut out some competition. And this place did. I mean, it was it's somewhat steep area, some hills, which I like hunting hill country, and I do see sign of other hunters, but I see it coming away from the trailhead in such a way that it's not very far. And there is some deer sign near the trailhead area, but to me, as I was scouting, I think my first trip out there was maybe mid to late October, maybe October 26th. I, as I was scouting, I could see scrapes and I could see rubs, but to me it wasn't hot sign. It wasn't quite the type of sign that you really set up on. And so I had the first time I went down there, I scouted. Let's just say it was October 26th, and I was covering this drainage, covering ground. Found a giant rub. Found two really hot scrapes. One of the scrapes that I ultimately set up on, which was up on a knob off as the ridge sort of comes down to the creek system. There's a knob, and this was a giant car size car hood size scrape, and it looked like it had been really well maintained, and I set up on the downwind side of that, and that evening I had a a buck chase a doe. The buck was grunting like crazy, and I mentioned this in a previous episode. And I never did get a good look at him, but I did see her as she zigged and zagged, and I could hear him, and they were deep, deep grunts, and it was a good hunt because I was like, okay, I've got evidence here of uh, of activity, and it's encouraging in a way that I should throw up an SD cam, which I did. I do have some cell cams, but I don't use them exclusively, and so I threw an SD cam up here. And so I think I came back maybe a week or so later, and maybe 5 days later, pulled the card. I think it was maybe another evening hunt, and there was a lot of deer movement on it. And if you think about if you're seeing daily deer movement on an SD and on any camera, cellular or just a regular SD, you realize it's only getting a small fraction of the movement around that area. So if you're getting a lot, then there is a lot of movement. Now, if you're getting a couple pics of a couple does or a buck every now and then, you can still be confident, I think, that there's still deer movement. It's just not in front of the camera. And that's what's interesting is that as I unpack the hunt itself, like none of the none of the deer I saw would have been on this camera, but yet it was full of activity. So that second hunt, I hit a buck high. I talked about that in a previous episode in the backstrap, clean pass through, clean arrow for all intents and purposes. I think there was just a little streak of pink and a little bit of muscle fiber on it or tissue. And grid search for that buck, didn't find him, didn't expect to find him, honestly, because it was the type of shot where I missed everything and just hit the backstrap, which is terrible. I'm not happy about that, and I did a better job as it relates to this hunt. And so that was a sit two. I think sit three was a dud, and I felt like I was maybe putting a little bit too much pressure on this spot. And I in the meantime, I had found a stray dog and helped try to find him a home, working with a local landowner, and that landowner gave me access to a piece of his property that opened up access to this public. And I hunted that, I think, 2 or 3 times, like a morning and an evening and a different morning or something like that. And what I was seeing there was not as much movement. I went pretty far back into this public and found a scrape and set up on it and threw a camera up on it, and I haven't been back to that spot, but I did find a saddle that had some good sign on it, set up on it, but it was I did see a lot of deer movement, but it was a lot of does and small bucks. And so it just really wasn't to me, I just didn't have the confidence, even though it was sort of closer to the vehicle and it was sort of right up against this private land that I now had access to, and I knew it wasn't really getting pressured from other hunters. It was clear that I wasn't in the right area. Whereas in the first spot that I described, the bucks that were coming through there were clearly more mature bucks, and so was when it came to last Wednesday morning. I was going to hunt all day, and I got there early, got down to the spot, had a good. This was sort of a north-facing slope, so the wind was coming out of the east or the southeast, if you can imagine. And so I'm on the north face, but I only set up on that knob, and I was very meticulous about the trees I picked out because I think one of the problems with some of my other encounters with bucks this year, specifically when I'm bow hunting, I had a good encounter with a nice 8 pointer on a different piece of public where he was right in my lap. And then I had a buck that I shot here at this spot where he was also in my lap, and it just was too quick, too much, too fast. So I set up off a little bit further because I really didn't want to have something like that happen. Now at this point, a lot more leaves have fallen off the trees. It's a lot more open in a lot of ways, but I felt like I wanted to set off just a little bit. And I also wanted my scent, the way it was going, to really go further into the creek system and not up on the ridges that were sort of dumping off to my right as the wind is coming from the southeast. I didn't, if anything was on that ridge to my right, coming say right to my right to left, I didn't want my scent to be sort of hitting that ridge. So that was another reason why I set off a tip just a little bit of this knob. So around around sunrise, I had three does sort of work through. It was pretty chilly. Had them work through, and they were about 50 yards away to my left, and they were going up the ridge, and I could see them. And maybe they were further, maybe they were closer, but they were too far to shoot, and there was too much brush, and but but it was a good sign that there was some deer moving. And as I as it got to about 9 a.m., I had three does, sort of the lead doe and her two fawns coming from my left, but they were coming, instead of going up the ridge, they were coming perfectly parallel to the ridge, right to me, right to my tree. And so I was tempted to shoot the lead doe. I was sort of looking at her, and I've had this problem all year where I'm getting picked out of a tree pretty often, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a camo thing. It's not a movement thing. I was in my saddle. I had my bow in front of my face, but I, I don't know. That's kind of interesting. But I've been picked off a lot, especially by does, and she was looking at me, sort of checking me out. But I could hear sticks breaking behind her, and I was a little worried because I thought, well, that's a buck, and if he's directly behind her, when she bugs out, she's going to take him with him, or her. She's going to take him with her. And I knew like the gig was going to blow up in a minute here because she was so intensely looking at me. And she almost started to stomp. Actually, I think she might have stomped once. But I look to in the direction I'm off to my left, and I see this white rack going up the ridge, and I see the buck, of course, but it's a really white rack. And the rack, if you go to the Instagram, the Hunt Detail Instagram, you can see some pictures of it. I put that up there, and it's an 11 pointer, mature buck. It's sort of, I would say, I would describe it as high and tight. It has pretty good like palmation on the main beams. I mean, it's not, a giant by any means. I see some of these deer that are being killed by people online, and it's just insane. But ultimately, great mature buck, public land buck. I'm thrilled. So he's going up the ridge, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grunt at him, but I don't want to grunt at him now. I need him to go up a little further where I'm out of sight and he can't just sort of pick me off, or I mean, I need him to sort of have to come down towards me. So he goes, and then I grunt two or three times. Once I think at him, and then a couple times to off to my right because I'm trying to pull him down. The does bust out of there, which I knew they would, and I felt like it added to some of the authenticity of that interaction of a grunt, a buck grunting. So, and these does busting out of there. So, sure enough, I stop and then I grunt a couple more times, and then I can hear him coming. And he's dropping down and he's coming at an angle, not directly to me, but sort of at an angle coming to me, sort of quartering to me. And I see his legs, but I can't see his head, and he can't see me because there's a limb sort of in between him and I. And I think he's probably about 40 yards away at this time. And so I had prearranged a spot where these two ridges to my, like sort of to my right, come together. And sort of the knob that I'm on, and then this other ridge where it comes, and there's a trail there, a slight trail. And I had prearranged it for 30. And sure enough, he starts to come back down. He's coming down. He cannot get my wind. Because remember, my wind is coming sort of from his direction to me. And so he can't get my scent. So he continues to come down. He crosses that little uh, indentation where the two ridges come together, that draw. And I just do that sound at him, stop him. I'm already got my pin on him, 30 yards. Hit him perfect. I mean, it was a perfect shot. Have I couldn't have, put the arrow next to him and made a better shot, like if I did it with my hand. And I didn't, I could see as he took off the area, his fur had been changed. I didn't necessarily see blood, but I knew if I hit him there that he was done. If you go to the Hunt Detail YouTube channel, a lot of things that I do are I'm looking at different product categories. And one of the categories that I look at XL saddle platforms, large saddle platforms. I look at cellular trail cameras as a category, and I'm trying to find value. And one of the things that I looked at, and I would encourage you to go to that channel, subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more content as we go into late season because I'll have more time, quite honestly, because this is my second buck tag that I filled. And so I still have one more tag that I fully intend on filling as a late archery tag. But I'm going to be putting a lot more content out over the next few months. And then I will be at the ATA this year, like I was last year, and there'll be content on new products coming out of ATA. So if you're interested in ATA stuff, which who's not, I'll be there, and I'll be connecting with a lot of the mobile hunter brands that are out there. So one of the pieces of content that I did was I compared different mechanical broadheads, and I looked at the Sever 1.75, the Sever 2.0, the Rage 2.0, the Beast, and I've looked at the Mega Meat. So there's the dead meat, which I did look at, and the mega meat. And I was really impressed by the mega meat in the sense that it had really strong penetration, but it has these three blades that open up really wide. And I looked at it from the aspect of a wound channel ratio, because you could have two different broadheads that penetrate the same, but how big are the blades and how many blades? And so the the mega meat, I'd seen a lot of people post pictures of blood trails and wounds and all that stuff, and so but I was really impressed in my test with the mega meats. Now, one of the tests that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking the shoulders of these two bucks that I've killed. I have four front shoulders. I'm going to be shooting some mechanicals through them and to see how they perform in the coming weeks. So, that's another reason to go check out the channel, because I want to shoot directly into the shoulder blade and I want to see how these mechanicals perform and how they bust through, or if they bust through, if they don't bust through, or how they penetrate and how they open and all that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But I shot this buck with a mega meat. Went and got the arrow. I could see blood on the veins with bubbles, which is a great sign. I knew I hit lung, and I thought if I hit lung with this broadhead, he's over. The broadhead had fully deployed. It was stuck in the dirt. Went all the way through him. So full pass through, and it actually, upon when I was working on him, breaking him down in the garage, uh, it broke a rib upon entry, and then did not hit a rib on the way out, but busted right through the rib, and there was really, like I said, a full pass through. I measured it out. He was about 40 yards away from where I shot him. That's where he died. There was a massive blood trail that a blind person could follow, and pleased to say that this deer did not really know what happened, and when he did, it was over. So really pleased, really happy. Long drag out. I made a huge mistake. If you plan on going deep in the public, get yourself a deer cart, or what I should have done was just quartered him up. That was really this would have been the smart thing. But for whatever reason, I thought I would just drag him, and I drug him, and it took forever to drag him out. And I was so sore the next day, and I should have just quartered him up. I had all the tools I needed there to quarter him up, but I didn't. And that was really stupid. But anyway, really pleased. And what's really exciting is as I get to as I as we merge into late season and into next year. I mean, this is really just the tip of the iceberg for me for this new piece of public. And so now I'm looking at the map and I'm seeing some other things that maybe I really hadn't seen before. And I'm also going to be able to dive into that doe bedding area a little bit more. Uh, some of the ridge tops in that area that bucks were using a little bit more. Look at some of the sign. Look at maybe some other things that might be more attractive to deer. Maybe identify other bucks, bigger bucks. I mean, there was a bigger one in the area that I had a couple pics of, but I just this was one of those situations where you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. It's you have a mature buck and you have a situation where he puts himself at 30 yards and you take that shot. At least I do. And there was a bigger frame buck there. Whether he makes it out of this year, who knows? But it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about the future of this spot and what the future holds in terms of hunting this region, and even still maybe getting more access from my work with this local landowner. Now, what I'm going to do is take him some deer burger, maybe take him a couple deer steaks, and just say thank you for your hospitality. Even though I didn't kill this buck on his property, I just want to create a deeper relationship there with him. They're really nice people. And I think, as I mentioned before, it will parlay into either more access on his ground or other opportunities with people he knows that don't necessarily hunt or have hunters on their property. So lots of fun. And more to come. As I mentioned, I've got another buck tag I'm going to try to fill, and I'm going to take a little bit of a break here. Oh, up until, I hate to say it, after Thanksgiving, because I know that there's still this is still prime time uh, in a lot of ways. I mean, there's lockdown, of course, but this is still prime time, and I hate to miss out on this, but I I I, I just have to step away for a little bit to take care of some other things that are priorities as well. But I should be getting after it again right after Thanksgiving and into December. But enjoy the grind. It's going to go quick. Even if you get frustrated and you're not seeing things, make things happen. Get on the ground and hunt on the ground. Use the wind. If it's a windy, rainy day, all the better. Uh, if it's even just windy, just use that. And if you bump deer, at least you know where they're at, and then you have something to go off of. Because if you just sit in a stand all day and hope that something's going to happen, there's no there's no chance that there's a chance that you're just going to waste your time. And I've certainly done that, and it's sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But if you get down and you bump deer, or you might find a situation where you find a buck on lockdown with a doe, where all of a sudden you could almost, I mean, they don't even, that buck doesn't even care. Like, you could walk around in a clown suit and he wouldn't even care. He's only focused on that doe and breeding that doe. And so you find a situation like that, you have yourself a real opportunity. So just don't get frustrated. It's there's still plenty of time. And as the rut winds down, the good news is that there's less and less people out in the woods. So it gives you, it's one of the reasons why I'm excited about hunting late season, because I know as I hunt this other public piece that I'm not going to be competing with other people. Now, deer have been so pressured that their movement's going to be, you know, not nearly as much. And they're going to be really focusing on security. So that does make it more difficult, but there's going to be a lot less hunters, and you're not going to be dealing with, you know, some of that pressure. And eventually, deer will get back into some sort of cadence or rhythm in terms of movement based on food to bed. Now, uh, of course, as I mentioned earlier this year, once you get into January, February, that's the time to just hike the woods and bump deer on purpose and find those areas, find those security areas, so that when you come to next December, that you know how to set up or where to set up. And anyways, I'm rambling a little bit, but I appreciate your time. I appreciate your support of this podcast. I encourage you to please give this a 5 stars on iTunes. That would be a really big help. And best of luck, and we'll talk again next week.